In this session, we're going to learn about quality assurance. We'll go into test data generation. This test data generation process is one that can assist you in a multitude of ways. We talked earlier about being able to manually test your survey using the testing tools. Well, that will give you a limited number of tests because you're going to test manually. The test data generation process will allow you to have simulated data in bulk generated by the system, and you'll be able to fully control it as necessary. Then once you have that information and that bulk data, you can then review it in a number of ways, using the validate data tool to look at numbers and counts and percents, or you can go and actually export the data and review it in its rawest form. This process is integral to the quality assurance process because it'll allow you to have another check of your entire survey before you launch it. You'll always want to test manually as much as you can, but this process will allow you to generate data quickly and easily and review counts, percents, skip patterns, and other pieces of logic tied to your survey. In this session, we're going to discuss the validate data tool. This is the location within each project in which you can run test data, also called dummy data or random data generation, or RDG for short. Simply find the project in which you want to run your test data. In this case, I'm going to use Survey 4. In the navigation menu, I will now select Validate Data. Once you click on that option, you'll be sent directly to this tool. The process is quite simple. Towards the top of the screen, you'll see Test Data Entries. Right below this will be an Add Test Data button. This menu will appear in which you can create your test data. The first option is the test run name. This is not required, but sometimes a good notice for any users who come in and want to review what type of test data you're trying to run. The next field is the max number of respondents. This is the total number of respondents you wish to test through. So in this case, I'll add 100. The next field is the max completes. So let's say I only want to come up with 20 total completes. This means that you're going to run through 100 total respondents, whether they be completes or terms, and your end goal is to get 20 completes in total out of this 100. Just by doing that, you can now click on the Generate Data button at the bottom. You'll see you'll have two progress bars. The first is the total respondents out of 100, and the bottom one is the number of completes in total. And I was trying to get 20. So you can see I only needed 41 respondents to get 20 completes in this particular case. You can now close this screen if you wish, or at the bottom of the screen you can also see that there are 21 terminates. If you needed to review this, in case you weren't getting a lot of completes out of the 100, you can review and get some notifications as to why folks were terming. So in this case, I can see they were all for Q1 Term 1. In a follow-up session, we can show you how this information will be helpful to be able to get through a different page path using a test data template. I'm going to close this for now. And now you'll see here's the test data run that we just created. So out of 41 total respondents, we got our 20 completes. We requested 100 in total. But since we got our 20, it stopped at 41. Tells me who processed this request, and allows me to run more if I wish. So I can just click on the run more to get another 20. Or I can click on the edit option and change some of those parameters that I indicated. Maybe I want to change the total max respondents to 200, and I want to get another 30, so I get 50 in total. You can do that at any point. Now that I've got my 20, I can scroll down towards the bottom and see the total data shown. Now here you'll see there's 22 completes, but I only got 20 using my test data generation. That's because I have, you can see here on the top line, 2 manual entries. This means that I used the testing link directly and was manually testing the survey. I'll leave that as is. And now I can truncate this area. You'll see it gives you a little bit of a summary towards the top. And then you can see on the left-hand side, this looks very, very similar to the question tree within the Build and Edit tool. So these are all the questions that have been programmed. So if I wanted to, I can click on either the full section, individual questions if that's what I'm looking for. But in this case, I'm going to click on the full section. And now you'll see in the main screen, the first question was, what is your gender? It says choose one here, which was my instructional text. Here are my response options. And now I've got counts and percents to review for my test data. So here it looks like all the males were terms, and you have 100% females. If you need to, you can expand the logic pages to review exactly what was happening. So here I can see Q1 equals 1 is a term point, so I know male at Q1, punch 1, is going to be a term point, so that's why this is a 0. So if I ever needed to verify that, I can just click on the logic area here to expand it. Or if I just want to double check what might have been on that page, it may or may not be something you wanted to look at this particular moment in time, but you continue to scroll down and then you can see your counts and percents. So this is a checkbox question. Here are the response options. Here are the counts. So this is a select all that apply type question, so that's why the numbers are all different. You do not have to select all, but in this case, this is the aggregate. So of my 20 total, in this case, which saw this question, 10 selected Apple. And the pattern continues. I can continue to scroll. 100% selected 20 at Q3 because it's the only option. Q4, I've got 22. So the reason this is a very good tool is because I can now look at something like this to indicate, okay, I've got 22 total counts here, but I've got 20 for the rest. That means that either A, I was skipping around when I was using my testing tools manually, or there might have been a skip in place at some point, and you wanted to verify that. So you can see now Q5 is now 22 as well. So if that is confusing, or you wanted to get rid of the manual tests because maybe you were making changes and did not account for that, you can expand this main area, and I can get rid of the manual entries. So there's a line item here going to the actions column on the far right for the manual entries, and it says to remove the data in this entry, you must clear all test data. So at least you have a notification here that'll tell you exactly how to do this. So it gives you the option, or you can cancel. So I'm going to delete it all. We've got a confirmation screen. I'm going to hit yes there. And I'm just going to refresh. And now you can see that everything went down to 0. So if I clear that option again, this is going to blank that out completely. I still have this test run name, so if I wanted to, I can click on run more to get my 20 again. So now I've got 40. Well, I need was 43 respondents to get my 20 completes, so I'll just close here. So now if I scroll down, the completes all match at 20. So now it's more uniform and it's cleaner versus having those manual entries that could have had, again, different outcomes because maybe you were testing the survey before you're done, or maybe you were skipping around. So this way, this is completely clear and everything is done using the test data run that we created earlier. I'll truncate this and I will select all the questions again. So now I'm back to 20 as my base for this question. Again, since it's random, these are going to be different answers now. So I've got 20, 20, and 20. Internally, when we're doing any sort of full service work for any clients, usually we'll go into this particular tool before we even send the client the test link to review in order to verify things just like this. Base sizes look to be correct. If I needed to validate any sort of skip patterns and look at logic to confirm that and see that the counts were appropriate, then I would be able to use this tool to confirm that. It also allow you to review filters and any other sort of patterns in which you were programming to account for. And that is an overview of the Validate Data tool. In this session, we're going to discuss test data generation templates. I'm currently within the Validate Data tool, and I'm going to click on the Add Test Data button. I can create this optional test run name if I wish. Usually this is helpful if you're trying to distinguish between page paths. If you have different criteria needed to be able to run your data towards. So let me label this path 1. And this is the total max respondents, which we've talked about before in a different session. And I want to get 50 total in this case. Now towards the bottom of the screen, I have a template option. I don't have to use this. I can just click on generate data and it's just going to randomly generate data based on the questions that I have in place and see if I can get my 50 completes that I'm asking for. What I can do is add a test data generation template. So I'm going to click on add new. And this menu will show you all of the questions and variables that you have programmed within your survey. Here you have the option to hard code some answers if you needed to get through the screener with certain criteria. Again, maybe you're trying to denote a specific path, so you wanted to make sure that these specific answers have been selected to be able to qualify somebody as part of that particular path. So let's say your screener is very intricate. Maybe you need 2 or 3 questions to be answered in a specific manner. So let me do that exact thing. So I know in this particular survey that anybody who is a male is going to term. So maybe I want to take care of that as well. I'm going to hard code Q1 to option 2, which is female. And maybe in Q2, this is a select all and apply question, I want to have these 3 options selected, and I want to make sure the none is not selected because it's mutually exclusive, but I don't care about these other 2, so I'm going to leave them as is. If I wanted them to be unchecked on purpose, I can just click on uncheck and that'll hard code that as well. So now I've hard coded some answers. I can now go to the bottom of the screen and name this template. Maybe I'll even call this path 1 as well. And I will hit create. So now the path is available here and now some extra buttons show up. I can just click on generate data because the template's already here that I want to use. So I can just click on generate data. So now I've got, out of my 100 respondents, I'm getting my 50 completes in total. So it looks like I will not need the full 100 to get my 50. And because I took care of that term point, which was the gender question that was I need to have 100% females, because I accounted for that, I don't have any termination errors or messages towards the bottom. So that accounted for that as well. So if I hit close, I now have 50 respondents available here in my test data. Still, in addition, I have my 43 on a prior test run in this particular case. So I've got 70 total respondents, which are complete. So if I wanted to, I can now truncate this, and I can see what my counts are. Again, I'm looking at the total at that first test run, and now also my page path template. So this is got all of the information tied to what is appearing here. So now I can scroll down, review my answers. So my counts are all 70 here, so it looked pretty good. I can then go up to expand my data settings. And let's say I wanted to take away those 43 from that test run that I initially created in a prior session. I can click on the X to get rid of those. Just refresh. So now that's gone. And now I've got my path 1 and my 50 total completes here. So now I can just review those specific 50. And then I will select my questions on the left-hand side of the question tree. And now I've got my 50. So I can review now this specific page path. I want to expand my settings again. That's fine. Maybe I want to now create another test run with some different answers hard-coded, but I have most of them are going to be the same as path 1. So maybe it's just a couple of tweaks I need to make. So I can create another test data generation run. Maybe I'll name this path 2, just so that I know. Don't have to. Again, that's optional. Maybe I want 100 responses again, and maybe 50 total completes is what I'm looking for again. So now, if I search in this template dropdown, I have that path 1 template that I created earlier. I do not have to recreate the wheel. If a lot of those answers are going to be the same, I can now click on clone, name it path 2 as an example, hit clone. Now I'm in the path 2. And I can now have the option to click on edit. So now to confirm I'm on the path 2 template, I can now go in and change some of my options. I'm going to leave Q1 in this case is my hard-coded gender. I'll leave that alone. Maybe I want apple to be checked, and maybe this time I need orange to be checked. And maybe I want to uncheck this one and uncheck that one. I'll hit save. Now I have a brand new path. I can now hit my generate data. And here is that same menu that you saw before with the progress. So total respondents out of 100, trying to get to 50, and I'm almost there. Click close. So now I've got 100 total. If I truncate the data settings, I'll see now 100. If I expand the settings again, I can also use some of these filters. So there's a custom filter here in which I can filter based on any questions or variables, and using some ands and ors to be able to filter as well. And I can even use a filter name so that I can save this for the future if I wanted to. So if you ever wanted to look at a survey in which you had, as an example, gender question, in this particular case, I have a term that if you are a male, you're going to term, but let's say you wanted to look at a different survey that had a different makeup for the gender. You could be a male or a female, it didn't really matter, but you want to just look at the males as an example. You can set it up here to create a filter. I'll hit cancel here, and then you can also filter based off of status. So you can also look at in process folks, terminate, or everybody. The default is to look at just the completes, because sometimes it will be difficult to tell if what is going on when you have your in-process folks, because they haven't completed the survey, they might have gone to question 3 out of 20, as an example. You can also look at the terminates too, to see where the highest rate of terms might be. But again, looking at all of them might get a little bit confusing. The option is there, but default is completes. Now if I go back up towards the top, maybe I want to click on this add test data again. This time I'm going to skip the top because I just want to show you separate options to the templates. So if I wanted to, I just selected one of the templates that I've already made. I can create a new one completely if I wanted to. I don't have to search for that here. But if I want to add a new one, I can. I can delete this particular one if I wanted to, so that's why I selected path 2. I can delete that if I want. I can click on clone if I want to make a copy of this one and continue to work and update different questions to create a separate template. Maybe path 2A or 2B or something like that if that makes sense, depending on the use case of your survey. Or again, I can edit the path 2 one. And if I delete, it'll give you a confirmation. So I'll hit delete, and then I can close. And now the data that was used for that path, or at least the line item for path 2 is now gone. If I look at my total completes, I've got 50 here and 50 here. So what happened was that line item where path 2 was removed, but they were just moved to the manual entries because the test data template that I used is now gone, so we haven't removed that test data at all. We have just now moved it to the manual entries because it doesn't have a corresponding template because we've removed it. And that's why the total is still at 100 down here. And that's an overview of the usage and creation of test data templates. In this session, we're going to show you how to clear your test data. I'm currently within the Validate Data tool, and you can see that I've got some manual entries and a Path 1 test run name that I created as well. Let's say I want to get rid of all of the test data that I have on this project altogether. What I can do is come up to the very top right and click on Clear All. You'll get a notice that this is going to remove all the test data associated with the survey. Would you like to continue? I'll just hit confirm. And now it's clearing all the test data. I can refresh if I wish, and I can see that both of these line items are still here. I will delete this line item, and I will delete this line item as well. So if I now refresh to get rid of both of these, I have no more test data. So I'm back to 0, and I've gotten rid of my test data runs as well. So now I'm starting here from scratch. I can continue to run more test data if I wish, or I can just leave this area and go back to my project and do whatever it is that I need to do to continue with my workflow. Do note that you can come here also at any time during fielding. So let's say, for example, you do have test data in here, but you also have live data. If you come in here and clear all, this is only going to ever clear test data. So people that are set to a variable called test, it's in capital letters, T-E-S-T. If that equals Y, meaning yes, then that will clear all of those respondents out. There are some use cases in which you may have switched a real respondent to test just to get it out of the real data set. Sometimes that's done for a variety of different reasons, such as cleaning open ends or straight line checks or any sort of other quality assurance type process you might have had to remove those folks from the actual live data set. But once you do that, it will keep these folks there unless you come here and clear all. If you clear all, even if you've moved somebody from live to test, then those folks will be removed too. So if you ever do plan on keeping those folks for any reason, we would recommend not clearing the test data because it's going to get rid of everybody in that test equals Y or test equals yes bucket. But if you do have folks that are in the live data set, those folks would never be impacted again unless you manually switch them to be a yes in that test variable. And that's how you clear your test data. To review, now you'll know a lot more about the quality assurance process. You'll also be able to create random test data or dummy data and utilize the validate data tool to review that data. This will give you the ability to view counts, percents, and even validate whether or not your skip patterns, terminations, or any other sort of logical checks are working and are in place. And if anything sticks out, you can update the programming before you go live.